This is the Brave Little Mama, aka Sherry. I'm back for another video in my series of videos. This one in particular, I want to talk about cow's milk and when you should introduce it and what reasons you might have to introduce it before a year old. So, the basic premise is to wait until they're 12 months of age or older before you introduce any kind of cow's milk. Now, I've done some research on this, and even Dr. Sears, who I feel like is a condemner of a lot of things when it comes to parenting, he even recommends that cow's milk wait, but that cow's milk gets kind of a bad rap in the parenting world, and it kind of does, because a lot of people will come out and say that cow's milk is bad. I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to tell you that you should never give cow's milk to your child, because I don't feel that way. There are a lot of women who will say that you should skip cow's milk altogether and introduce something different, which there are alternatives. There's goat's milk, soy milk, rice milk, almond milk. There's all sorts of other milk that you could give to your child that's beneficial. The issue with rice milk, which I've mentioned in one of my other videos when I talked about rice cereal, is you've got the arsenic content. The same as you have in rice cereal or anything with rice in it, you've got the arsenic content, so you have to be aware of that. With soy milk, you run some of the same issues because soy milk is, soy is an allergen. That's something that a lot of people are allergic to or intolerant of. So you run the same kinds of risk with soy milk that you do with cow's milk to an extent. So when it comes to cow's milk, one of the main things that can be an issue is lactose. Lactose is the method by which milk carries sugar. It's the version of sugar in milk. Some people are incapable of digesting lactose. I myself am lactose intolerant. It tapered off some when I was pregnant, and it's not as bad now as it used to be. But I still, if I want to enjoy a milk product and do it properly, there are supplements that I take to make it so that my stomach can digest the milk properly. That's unfortunate, and it's honestly a pain, but it's part of the deal. Now, my son's 8 months old, and the chances of him being lactose intolerant are highly unlikely. And one of the things that a lot of new parents don't know is that lactose intolerance doesn't typically present itself until early adolescence. So they're finding somewhere around 6 to 8 years old is the typical scenario of when it presents itself. So seeing a child who's 8 months to a year to 2 years old that's lactose intolerant does happen, but it's extremely rare. So the chances that your child is lactose or milk intolerant is unlikely. But again, it does still happen, so that's something you need to be aware of. And as we've talked about the virgin gut or the open gut in one of my other videos, you have to be aware of the allergen issues too. In my case, I have to keep an eye on how things occur when I do give my son cow's milk. Since I am lactose intolerant and my husband is as well, it is possible that my son will be lactose intolerant as well, although I haven't seen any issues with that so far. So, when it comes down to it, the other main concern when it comes to cow's milk and introducing it before a year old is iron deficiency. Milk is not a very good carrier of iron. It doesn't have a lot of iron in it, and it can actually block the absorption of iron into the bloodstream. And that's a problem because, as we all know, or should know as new parents, it's extremely important that you make sure that your child gets enough iron. Now, in my case, my son's 8 months old, and I talked to his pediatrician about slowly introducing cow's milk, and she actually suggested that at his 9-month checkup, we see how he was growing and see how things were progressing at that point. And as long as he was gaining weight okay and was still on the charts where he is, being that he was premature, and still continuing to grow, which he absolutely is, she talked about transitioning him over to cow's milk. So that's something that we've talked about in his particular case, mostly because his pediatrician is a little concerned about all the extra stuff that he's getting out of formula. I don't know if any of you have looked at the back of a can of formula recently, but there's a lot of stuff in there, and a lot of it's chemicals, and a lot of it's synthetic because, well, it's not breast milk. So there's a lot of stuff in there that my pediatrician and I agree, we believe he would be better off not ingesting on a regular basis if we can help it. Now, if that's done with pediatrician supervision, you would want to obviously consistently check his iron levels and make sure that he's getting enough iron and that he's progressing properly in the weight scale. My son eats around 3 meals a day of solid food at this point. So he's relying less on milk at this point and more on, it's more of a 50-50 split at this point, which in breastfed babies isn't necessarily the case, particularly because oftentimes you wait before you introduce solid foods, or you do baby-led weaning, which again I'm going to do another video about baby-led weaning. But if you do it in that way, they're still more reliant on breast milk. In his case, we seem to think that, and my pediatrician seems to think, and I tend to agree, that it would be better if he was getting the minerals and vitamins from a more natural source instead of from formula necessarily. So I have introduced some to him, and he's done perfectly fine with it, and there are certain signs that you watch for, but I'm not going to get into that because that's something that should be closely monitored with you and your pediatrician. Your baby's doctor needs to make a definitive call if they want you to start cow's milk early, and there really needs to be a reason to do so. You shouldn't just decide one day that you're going to give your kid cow's milk. It's not a good idea. You should ideally always wait until a year if you can help it. So really when it comes down to it, to wrap up the points on this one, you should wait until a year to introduce cow's milk. Cow's milk is full of a lot of vitamins and minerals, but it's also full of lactose, which can not only cause allergen issues, but can cause iron blocking deficiencies, which you don't want an iron deficiency in your child. That's just complicated. And it can cause all sorts of other issues, as well as possible allergen to milk protein, which they've talked about in some science. Introducing cow's milk too early without proper specifications being met could cause allergens as well. So again, if you're choosing to do it early, don't just do it on a whim. You need to very closely monitor the situation and do it hand in hand with your doctor, and there needs to be a reason for it. And then there are alternative milks that you can look at introducing to your child as opposed to cow's milk. So that's pretty much it for this video. I would love it if you'd subscribe or like, or just leave a comment if you have any questions or want to say anything. I would love to hear from you guys, and I'll be back next time for my next installment. Have a good day.